Let's just start it off, man. Tell me a little bit about yourself, like your background. Let's not even talk about Japan yet. Let's just talk about.
Yeah. So what's up? My name is Mike, from Washington Heights in New York City, born and raised. Around, I don't know, after college sometime, like 23 or something, I moved to South Bronx, so 182nd and Walton. So my whole life I grew up in New York City. Around, I would say like 24, 25 or something like that. I started traveling. I used to be a flight attendant. When that finished, I became a teacher in New York City. I went back to being a flight attendant after that because I missed it a lot. And then just so happened around 27, 28, I traveled to Japan, came here. So been here 10 years now.
So how you end up here, B?
I remember this scenario when I was like, I would say 7, 8. We was in, my mom is from Sosua, my dad's from Puerto Plata. And we was in Sosua. My uncle had this, he had like a beach house right next to, like, there was a cliff and you can dive off of it. So I don't know if he's not alive, but I don't know if the family still has that. But I remember we was all like cousins and stuff, all of us together. And we were just, Dominicans being Dominicans, like, what kind of girls you like? And then I remember I was too young to really, like think about girls. I was just, I was like, I don't know. I had to be like 6, 7, 8, something like that. And my cousin, he was older. He was in his teens, and he was like, oh, I like Asian girls. And I was like, oh, me too. Because I didn't really know what to say. And I remember he was like, oh, you do? I was like, yeah. And I remember he had like pictures and stuff. And that's when my kind of like, I like Asian girls kind of vibe kicked in. And then I remember just years later, like I always was attracted to Asian girls, kind of weird, but that wasn't like the focus. I was really big on cars. And like around 18, I was obsessed with fucking with muscle cars. And then at that, I think I was 17, 18. The first Fast and Furious movie came out, and I was with my ex-girl at that time, this Cuban chick, and she had this friend, his best friend. His name was Iggy. He liked cars too, but we weren't really friends like that. He was like, yo, let's go check out this Fast and Furious movie. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. At 18, we just started going to movies by ourselves, so whatever. I was more hype about that. And I saw this movie, and I was like, what's that? And he was like, well, it's JDM. I was like, what's JDM? And he was like, Japan domestic market. He was like, four-cylinder turbos. And then after that, I didn't care about muscle cars. I just cared. I was fucking obsessed with four-cylinder turbos, Nissans and Civics. Back then, Civics was a huge thing. And at that time, when I was 18, 19, 20, people were still in Hus Point. People were still in the South Bronx racing. So we used to go to the races after 1 o'clock in the morning. It was crazy exciting at that time. It was so much fun. Like, it was super illegal. I remember the cops stopped us all the time. We ran away from the cops several times, whatever. My friend was crazy. And that thing always stayed with me. So I was always like, I didn't really have a path in life, whatever. People were like, what do you want to do? I said, I just want to move to Japan. I just thought, racing was life. And at that time, like, you kind of get obsessed with it. Like, anytime I heard anything was Japanese or Asian, I was like, oh, I was infatuated by it. I didn't really care if it was old or new or whatever. And then when I was a flight attendant, I came here. First place I went to was Okinawa, and I was like, oh, it looks kind of like DR, but like Asian. It was weird. It wasn't what I expected. It was cool. It was really cool, but it wasn't what I expected. But when I came, this was, how long? This is at least over 15, 16 years ago. I went to Tokyo. I was like, oh, this is wild. Like, you just saw the glitz and the glamour. And, we went to the airport and we drove. We had to go to Tachikawa. And you had to go from Narita to Tachikawa. And that's, you go through Chiba and we went through the tunnel, the underground, and then you pop out. And I think we popped out in Ueno or something like that. And we had to pass by, the overpass in Shibuya. So, the highways next to the building. And, New York, and I've been to New York. I mean, I'm from New York. I've been to London. And it's a different, you can go all over the world, but the cities have the biggest kind of differentiate, like they show the place. When people think of New York City, it's like they think of America, kind of that vibe, not real America, but that's the image, right? And I'm from New York City, and I've been to London, and London is like, wow. I've been to Abu Dhabi and Kuwait and all this, but when I passed by Tokyo, I was like, this is another monster. I was just like obsessed with it. And I remember any chance I got, any trip, I just came to Japan. I was loving it. Like, it just seemed like this huge toy. And it was like New York, but safer and more modern. What I felt like was way more modern, right? We had the train passes, the bullet train, the food, it was tons and tons of stuff. Like, and then, pachinko's really big. You don't know what that is, but it's mad loud. And when you go to Shibuya, you go to the main station, Shibuya, Shinjuku, Ikebukuro, it's loud. Like, it's like in your face, I mean, New York is loud, but it's more like the cars, everything had a sound and the lights and all that stuff. And I was like, man, this is where I want to be. And then I just made it my mission to come live here. Even I tried a bunch of times. I got denied every single time. But after the big earthquake, my company, we flew mostly military. My company was here every week. So I was here like twice a week. Like, I would come here for a day and then go home, which was crazy. We flew direct sometimes, but usually it'd be like an 18-hour endeavor, right? Sometimes we flew to Texas and flew here, or flew direct. But I was here twice, my guy. So I was spending more time in the airplane flying here than actually here. But I was loving it. Like, I would just go to the city. Everybody would be like, where's Mike? Like, he's not even in the hotel. I wouldn't sleep. So I was like, I'll sleep on the airplane, bro. It's all good. And I would just be combing around. And I remember one of the most fun I had, I was with this Colombian flight attendant. She was like, oh, let's go dancing. And I said, oh, let's go to Roppongi. Man, I had such a good time. Like, it was like being in the heights in Roppongi. At that time, I went to Latin clubs and stuff. We Googled it, whatever. We had smartphones just happen, we had. And I was like, man, this is where I want to be. I was like, that's it. That's where I want to be. And I remember I had a little bit of trouble with my company. I said, man, F it. And I was in Narita. For some reason, I had to stay in Narita, and I Googled, like, being a teacher. Like, I tried before. I didn't get in. But like I said, I was here twice a week. And after the earthquake, and I sent my resume out to like 8 companies in Narita, I remember. And by the time I landed in I was gonna say KFC, in JFK, I had like 5 replies, like, yo, can you come next week? And I just they were like, some of them were really, really far, and it was between Chiba or here in Soka. And I remember I was talking to this Japanese chick at the time, and she's not from here, she's from Nagoya. And she was like, it says it's like closer. You want to be in Shibuya. Everybody wants to be in Shibuya. So it's like a 50-minute ride from here or an hour and a half. And I was like, I'll take the 50. And then came here. And the rest is history,
Describe making the film in your own words. So just get right to it.
So when I was first asked to do it, I was like, bro, I'm not because I used to, like I told you before, coming here to Japan, I was able to experience tons and tons of stuff. I did modeling and did movies, nothing, too outlandish, but nothing as the main. And then they're like, oh, I know I think it was Tam, right? Tam put you on?
Tam put me on.
Because Tam put me on, but then Oscar helped. You know Oscar, right? Little Oscar?
Colombia?
Yeah. He called me too. And I was like, I'm already on the squad, my guy.
Yeah, I think I hit him up too. Like, yo.
He was like, I was like, yo. He was like, yo, I got this dude that is making a movie. I was like, his name is Free. He was like, yeah. I was like, I'm already on there. He's like, what? So, yeah, when Tam hit me up, I was like, yo, it's nothing too crazy. It's just a day of filming. It's a thing. He was like, you just got to act like yourself. And I was like, yo, just let this dude know I'm not an actor. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the whole endeavor was weird. So I used to do the acting stuff, and you're like, oh, you gotta rehearse. Not rehearse. You said you gotta, what's the word I'm looking for? You gotta,
rehearse?
No. Try out.
Yeah, the tryout joint. Yeah.
And then I was like, and then it was like Corona just started like a couple months, and I was like, yo, this place smelled musty in here. I was like, this smelled like Corona, the place where we were at.
that was at a share house.
That whole, I was like, yo. And I was like, I don't really like wearing a mask, but I was like, I'm gonna wear this mask in this place, because I was like, they had do you remember it was hot as hell, like it was crazy.
It was
musty.
like June or something. And we were up in the share house. Like I got this room to do that tryout joint.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is tough. And then, you're in the mix or whatever. And I remember I remember like, all right, cool, this is cool. And they had that dude that he was trying to play the part. He was really serious. I don't remember his
He wanted
name.
to play the Tamru spot. You think?
I think so.
Yeah.
And he had the script and he read it and he
Yeah.
wrote it. And I was like, bro, you an actor for real, because you sound like, like a preppy dude. I was like,
Yeah.
you really stretching whatever you're trying to do
Yeah.
here. That was a little weird, whatever. And I was like, and I remember reading the script. And, when it's on paper, it's totally different than when you're reading it out, right? So I was like, what's this or whatever. And then when we started like rehearsing, I was like, man, this is way more real than I thought, I was like, man, this is tough. But I was getting excited, you know what I'm saying? And then like, no, but that was even before. I was like, whatever happened to this? Like, I showed up, and then we went through hiatus a couple months.
Yeah.
Right?
Because if you remember the original script, there was a Turkish character.
Yeah.
So then I had to do a straight rewrite, and then that's when the British character came in to replace that.
Yeah, so I was like, whatever. I remember my girl was like, yo, whatever happened to that movie thing? I was like, I don't know. It was a couple months of a hiatus, but
Yeah.
and then we're like, yo, we're gonna do it. I was like, really? Like, it's still on? And but for me, I think the toughest, the realization came when even though we did it 100 times. I don't know how many times we reviewed it together, all of us. And when we there and filming, and I remember just thinking to myself, like, man, I want to do it again. Like, I told my girl a lot of times, like, every time I was like, we got to film this movie. Like, I wasn't, it's especially the during what's going on during this whole time, you get very comfortable with easy life.
Yeah.
So during that time period, it was months of, like, just wake up. I don't have to, just wake up and, like, turn on the computer, come here, turn on the computer. And it was like an actual struggle. I was like, man, we got to go to Tokyo, like all this other stuff. But I remember every single time, I specifically remember my girl was saying, like, man, you talk a lot of shit. She told me, like, you talk a lot of shit. Every time you come back, you're so excited. Like, you can't wait to go back. She's like, shut up, just go do the movie. But it's so much fun. Like, we were discussing before, like, the camaraderie that we got,
Yeah.
all of us. Like, we all clicked, even the people who were, doing the camera work, and everybody just wanted to do good work together, and everybody wanted everybody to succeed. Man, it was such a family atmosphere that I haven't felt here in a very long time. And I really enjoyed that. That, to me, that's the most memorable. It's like like everybody was like, it was a project that everybody wanted to be proud of. And that was really cool sensations. I'm used to doing stuff alone here a lot, and it was really good. That was
What you mean by alone?
So Japan is an amazing place to live, but the problem is that they are taught to, in my opinion, I feel like they are taught to be quiet and work towards the group. Don't put your personality into it. Just make sure your personality fits into the group so there's no disruption. And so I've been here 10 years. When we started this project, it was like 9 years, 8 years, 2 years ago, 8 years in, right? So we've been working on this project a little bit over a year, almost 2 years, it feels like. And I felt like everybody had their personality, and they weren't trying to stray away from their personality. It was like, this is me, and this is how I act, And it was like, you either like it or you don't like it, and then we clash, we mesh, and we keep going forward. And it was really cool how nobody, I forgot who said this, but like, unapologetically yourself. And I really like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, Maurice was Maurice the whole time. I was like, yo, bro, shut the fuck up, already. And then, there's so many people that were just like themselves, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that you let that happen. And I think everybody in that room is an artist in their own shape. I'm not an actor, but I like to create, and I haven't felt that here in a long time. Because even when you're with people who create, they're still like they're quiet about who they are, and it's like they don't let their real self come outside, and I really like that. So that's why I'm saying you feel alone, because even though there's a group of people, there's, you know, as a group of people, very rarely to hear people they show their individualism, and everybody was individual in that shit. Like everybody was like, you know, and nobody was holding back on jokes, and everybody was like, you know, and it was like, all right, let's do this. Even eating together was so much fun. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I meant. For me, that was like my favorite part, living in Japan. But I felt like I was home for those few hours, few days. You know.
Making this film has been a long fucking journey, obviously. Yeah. What aspects along the way did you enjoy, and what did you find most difficult?
So, like, what I was saying before, I think the most difficult is number one, I'm not an actor, you know, and I didn't know it was so difficult to be yourself, but to be somebody else at the same time. So you was cool with me being myself, but I still had to play this role, and it was like, that's a mental toll that I never really thought about. Like I have to think about it in, you know, there was parts like a whisper can sound so different in so many, you know, no matter what the aspect. So I would say, number one, the most difficult was trying to find that person who I was playing, which was crazy, because there were certain scenes that I lost myself, and they were like, do it again. And I was like, bro, I'm in the zone, do it again. I was like, bro, I can't go back there. That was really hard. And also, like, you know, I live far, so like waking up and trying to get everything done, that was, to me, the most difficult. But the most enjoyable was meeting that whole cast of characters and working together, man. Working together, solidarity on something. I think a lot of us, I think where we come from, we're very easily selfish as people, as a community, you know, except for like with your family. And I felt like everybody in that room sacrificed to be there, not for their own vision, but to help somebody create their vision. And that was really cool. I really, really liked that. Like, I don't think, it's very difficult to find people who are selfless like that. And I really, really like that. I like that a lot. That was like my favorite part. Because it was for you, you know what I'm saying? And that's really dope. I like that. Like everybody was like, yo, whatever Free wants. It's like, it's different when you get paid for some, it's like, but when people are like really selfless like that, and it's like you spend days and days and hours, and it's like, that's really dope.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you and everybody else on it.
It was cool, man. That was really dope.
That's to add my 2 cents to the interview is just to say that, like, one thing I've realized as long as I've been in this industry, the more I want to get into like the narrative form, and the more, you know, you're trying to like really like get to the core of like something you're trying to express, like even though it comes from within me, for me to put it together, it's just like this whole other elaborate shit. Like even if you're, let's say, even if you're a painter, like in your room by yourself, who the fuck made that paint? Who made the brush?
Yeah.
Who made, you know what I'm saying? There's like this whole system to get all that together, you know? And like, I appreciate it beyond a way that it can be paid back. It's like my payback is like, I hope I have to finish this and make y'all proud of like being part of it, like being like my soul is on there too. Like it's not just me. Like I had that vision, but y'all helped carry that. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe I had the architect of a plane, but you can be like, yo, I flew that shit. I was the pilot on that. You know what I mean?
Even making the nuts and the bolts.
Exactly. The engineer, the whole thing.
Just to piggyback off of what you said, I think it's like also like everybody put their trust in you. And it's different if like it was like, oh, you do it, and it's like, what is this? What, we put all this effort. This is why we did this 4 times, 5 times. It doesn't. And when I saw it come together, I was like, man, like just putting the, you know, I said, I think everybody did this. Like, yo, you trust it. He has his vision, you know, and putting the trust in you and then seeing it flourish is like, it's a beautiful thing. I think, you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people are very nervous to put their trust in people, and seeing that first was really, really cool. Like everybody put their trust in you and you delivered. I think that's beautiful because you did the hours that we put in has nothing compared to the hours that you put into it, and the dedication that you have on that is crazy to me. It's I mean, I'm dedicated to things, but it's more selfish things. You know what I'm saying? It's a very selfless act, I think, even on your part.
It's funny. I didn't think of it that way, but I'll take the compliment.
It is. It's a trust. I think everybody put their trust in you, and it was like, because it could have easily fell by the wayside.
Oh, I almost did a few times.
You could have easily said, yo, it's over, that's it, whatever, we got what we got, whatever, and you just refuse, and you're like, yo, please, like, and it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's commendable when you see someone putting that much work and they believe in themselves that much, you know what I'm saying? Because there's plenty of times where I think even you were like, man, this is out of control. It's so many moving parts and so many things falls out, and you're literally scrambling to pick up the parts, put it back, and another piece falls out, and you're like, what? I finally understood what is this? This is a bubble gum and tape, but what's that phrase? Like a lot of programmers, it's like, it's held up by bubble gum and tape. You ever heard that before? Like, I finished it, but it's, be careful, it's bubble gum and tape right now. If you touch it, it's gonna fall apart. Like, look at it, And there was times I was like, oh my God, and then it came together, It's a beautiful thing. And that, to me, that's trust in somebody. I didn't know you, and I put my trust in you. And
which actually leads to my next question. What made you sign up for the film?
I think it was it was really funny because it was like, yo, it's Dominican cat, whatever. So I had this like vision in my brain of what you sound like, and then you're like, yo, what? I was like, you don't sound Dominican. It was like, oh, I'm from Boston. I said, oh shit, no wonder, son. And the first time was rough when we met the first time. Like when I went to, because the first time we met was when I auditioned. That's what I was looking for. But then after that, it was like we just connected, kind of like brothers. You know what I'm saying? The first time was rough, but I know that it's a lot of moving parts at that time. You know what I'm saying? But when I spoke to you on the phone, and then we spoke, I was like, oh, this is a brother, and I think we connected like that. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, and then when you said the vision that you had and like what you were looking, I was like, man, I want to be a part of this. And and I just so happened a couple months ago, or before when I met you, a couple months before that, I met what's his face? Now he slipped my mind.
Describe him.
Oh, he's gonna kill me.
Latino.
Well, the writer, what's his name? Fuck.
The writer. Oh, you talking about Juno?
Yeah. I was like, fuck, Juno. Oh my God, he's gonna kill me. Sorry, Juno. When I met Juno,
no.
Yeah, Juno, no. I just happened to meet Juno, and a couple months before that, and I was like, the dominoes are falling in my favor, And I was like, this is crazy that I met someone writing about Dominicans in Japan, and then there's a movie coming up with Dominicans in Japan. I was like, what? This is, I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna drop the ball, So, yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. Just going back to, just to follow up on my end of the story, it was just like, yeah, that day was weird, and I think it was because like some people showed up later, and then like we started crossing between different actors. And I was really supposed to have just a one-on-one with you, but then I was like, this person showed up, but he's playing a different part.
He was, yeah.
So it was like we had to kind of blend in.
And we didn't even have a chance to talk. You had to do all this shit.
We didn't have shit to do, so it was weird. But you learn through the process.
100%.
And without a doubt, I think like speaking to you on the phone, I was like, you have to play the part. It has to be you. Like I just knew it. Like it was like instinctive. I was just like, you understand the New York and the Dominican sabor, like mixed in your fucking genes. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like I ain't gotta explain that part. Like that part's covered. So even if you weren't an actor, it was like, all right, the acting part is like you have to believe that these things happen to you in the storyline. Yeah. But presenting yourself was already you. Like, dude, this is already you.
Yeah.
Y bueno, ahí estamos.
But yeah, I definitely felt when you would like, yo, I'm trying to do like, you gave me like, what was the examples you gave me? the Spike Lee joints and stuff, and I was like, but I'm trying to do a Dominican. I was like, that's what I've always wanted to like. I feel like Dominicans don't have their, like, even in Dominican Republic, like most good movies are American.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That I know of. I haven't been out there in a while, but like now, I just saw that the video I sent you. It was like, oh, but Indictment, you're not allowed, and that's cool. You know, Washington Heights, that musical set that off. One of the things I just remember one of the things that I really liked was that, fuck, hold on, it slipped my mind. One of the things I really liked was the only thing that represented Washington Heights at that time was the Heights, the musical. But before the Heights, the musical, people wouldn't go past Harlem. Like, oh, where you live? I live uptown. Oh, 125th. I'm like, my man, that's half the island, my guy. There's another half to the island, you know? And then when you see the Heights, it's like, that doesn't represent us at all, you know? It's a musical, my guy. None of these people watch musicals. Like, come on. And I remember musicals. When you said those things, like, I imagine this, like, representation of where I'm from that actually represents where I'm from. You know what I'm saying? Like, now Washington Heights is completely different because most of the people now that, at least that I saw, was like, most of them don't even speak Spanish, which is wild to me, but they're second generation. So their parents speak English. So they're very American.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But we grew up with the parents being Dominican. We were stuck in that transition zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And then, like, my mom just keeps saying this, like, my niece, they spoke to her only in Spanish for 3 years. Now she's in preschool, Spanish is gone. And it was like, my sister was like, man, it's 3 years. I was like, you got to keep it up. Like, it's your fault too. And she's like, yeah, I know. I speak a lot of English. I was like, you were just speaking to her in Spanish. Now she speaks a little bit of English. Now you going back to the English. It's different. Our parents didn't speak English, so we were bilingual, you know. But
if
like,
anything, Spanish was our first language.
Exactly.
We learned English in school.
My mom said, "You learned English from TV." I said, "No, I didn't learn Spanish from you. Don't say that. We only spoke in Spanish."
Yeah.
And I wanted to represent that in film, when you spoke about the film, that's how you spoke, and I said, "Ah, man, I want to be involved in this." I was like, "It's not the Heights. This is my generation of growing up in the Heights, you know."
That's what's up, B. All right, dude, there was a lot there, that's for sure, a lot. But I'm gonna move it forward on this thing, because on the real, we can be spending the whole shit just talking about that. Nah, it's really engaging for me, but I'll keep it moving, because it requires a revisit where we're just talking about that.
Yeah.
Going back to that character, what did you tap into? Like, obviously, like I said, culturally, that's you. In many ways, it's you. But the experience and the story aren't necessarily your own personal experience. So what did you tap into?
So I think one of the most, growing up, when I grew up, it was 100% Dominicans. Like, it was like 1%. From kindergarten to 8th grade, it was like 99% Dominican American, right? It was kids whose parents were Dominican Republic. And we were all born in New York. And there was a few like South Americans, but very, very little. Then I went to school, it was like 50% Hispanic. It was a very, very big mix. And then 50% black. Oh no, it was like 49% black and it was like 1% other. So even when I met you and you saw the character, I'm sorry, rewind. In high school, like, you meet these other Latinos. And I remember the first time, I hung out with people who actually say ajo. Like, what's that, bro? It's like arroz. Puerto Ricans say ajo. Or they say different stuff than we do. And then I remember that specifically because when I read the character, there's certain words, I was like, for me, in my area, it wasn't Dominican. That was Puerto Rican say that, and you know what I'm saying? One of the complex part was trying to, like, find my Dominicanness in this character, because it was kind of like your Dominicanness, right? And yours is in what I would say a mix.
It is, yeah. No,
of Puerto Rican and Dominican.
Yeah.
So there was certain aspects I was like, I wouldn't say that, right? And you let me change certain things, but certain things was like, no, I want you to say it this way.
Yeah.
And that was difficult because it felt not natural, and I was trying to find the naturalness in that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That was the first thing that was a little bit difficult. It was like, I can feel at least what I would grow up and I would say,
Say.
Puerto Rican, that would be a Puerto Rican dude. And I didn't really experience that till high school. Because I remember I hung out with Puerto Ricans at that time because we were all Dominican in the Heights.
Yeah.
Right? So that was a little difficult. What I tapped into was kind of like my parents were divorced when I was a kid. There was a couple of years, a long stretch of I would say 10 years I didn't really vibe with my dad. It was very, very difficult. But it was the battle between my mother and my father, and you obviously pick your mother's side because your father, you don't see the struggles of manhood till you get older. It's a different vibe, In my opinion, my father was just this hard ass dude that was bro, just calm down, give us a break. And in reality, I'm glad he never did because what he wanted us to do was grow up like men. My father always said, you don't need nobody. You don't even need your mother. You don't even need me. And growing up in that environment was tough. It was bro, chill. You need friends, my guy. What the hell? You know what I'm saying? Why you gotta be like that all the time? And then in the character, I try to tap into what I felt how my dad used to talk to us or whatever. Because my dad was separated from the kids, And you could see the hurt. Looking back now, you could definitely see the hurt, what he had growing up. He was hurting, because the battle between him and my mom. And I remember trying to find that hurt. The opposite, because I'm the kid in the story, right? But now I'm the father, and I'm the kid in the real life, but I'm the father in the story. So I was trying to tap into what I felt, but try to in a weird way, switch it I'm my pops. And that was really difficult. That was really hard. There was certain parts where it was there's a wall that you keep up and you gotta knock that shit down, but then you gotta build that wall back up because it's protecting you. And there was certain, you're you would do it again. I was bro, I'm in too deep right now. There's no coming back from this. But I would say, yeah, man, those are the things I tapped into to real life, because I would say now it's different. Our generation is really different, but I would say 95% of my uncles and aunts, they're all divorced. Everybody's divorced. Ain't no one together, It's rare. It's weird that now, I remember you could see my photos, parties and stuff. There's no men there. It's all mothers and kids. The father's either working or they're separated or... My father was never... I remember my father, graduations, my father would just be there enough to pick us up from the car and drive us home. He wasn't even at the graduations half the time. It wasn't until we got older that things actually calmed down, But my pops wasn't even there. He was working, or whatever. He was working. I'm talking shit, but that was tough. That was definitely the stuff I tapped into while doing that.
All right. Yeah, that's deep, B. That's deep. I'm taking it in right now. How do you think people relate to your character, JD?
So, I think there's... I'm a firm believer in communication. I think that one of the things that men in general, especially where we brought up, it was I never heard my father talk about his feelings. I never heard this dude, I heard him complain, oh, we work really hard, blah, blah, to put food on the table, that kind of complaining. But I never heard my father I never heard my father complain about himself, oh, look, my back is hurting and I have to kind of do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My father always had the Superman image all the time. And, wait, I'm sorry, what was the question again? I got sidetracked in my brain.
No, I mean, I think you're going to an interesting place, but the original question was, what do you think, how do you think people relate to your character, JD?
Okay. So, my father never really communicated as a man. It wasn't until I don't know, I think I was 23. I remember I went to Florida and we shared a beer together and I was my man, what the fuck? Why'd you do that shit? And at that age, I had enough in my life that we can talk. So I'm a firm believer in communication. And I think that character, because of the social status of everybody, at least Latinos and stuff, we don't communicate enough. And I feel if that character would just communicate, he got into that situation because he's not a communicator. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people can relate to that because there's a lot of times when we should have just said something. You know what I'm saying? You would avoid so much shit if you would just be like, yo, I'm not A, I'm not B, or I feel A, or I feel B. And I feel like that dude can open himself in a barbershop, but he probably couldn't open himself up to his ex-wife. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people can relate to that because you feel comfortable with certain people. But even your mans, your boy, you don't tell that dude everything. You know what I'm saying? And even people who you should tell things to, you don't. And those are the consequences. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what a lot of people can relate to. It's like, man, I should have just said something. You know? How can your daughter be X, Y, and Z? Or how can you do that to your wife? Or if I just would have spoke about something, or, you know, how you feel. Like, I think a lot of people, I have this one friend of mine who's like, every time I get really mad at him because every time I complain, he's like, he never takes my side. Never. I'm like, yo, this and this happened, blah, blah. And then he's like, yo, did you even think about what that person is going through? Maybe that person is having a rough ass day or something like that. And if people look at, you know, you can't know everybody's situation. It's impossible. But people who are close to you can. And if you can communicate how I feel and that person communicate how they feel, and you can come to a consensus of what's going on, it completely changes the dynamic. And I think a lot of people can learn from that guy. Because even in the story, he says that he feels this. He doesn't even say, like, he will say something to her, right? Like, lo vas a sentir, right? That was the line. And it was like, bro, why don't you just say something? All this feeling shit, you know, this is a guessing game over here, right? And I think a lot of people can learn that for communication. I'm a firm believer, and I think every character, you could tell in the story that certain characters are, you know, look at the guy who's playing the barber, Maurice's character. I mean, you could tell Maurice doesn't want to communicate, and that's wild. You know what I'm saying? It's wild that he put himself in that predicament because he doesn't want to communicate, and he's holding that shit in. And I think with my character, and you can tell, like, that guy didn't want to communicate, and suddenly with the barber who's having difficulty communicating, he's like, he can communicate, you know? And he found someone who's less of a communicator with him, like, please talk to me, you know? Which is weird because he probably wouldn't be able to communicate with his ex-wife, but he wants basically a stranger to communicate with him, right?
Yeah, that's I from my personal experience, I find this a lot when I travel, believe it or not, man. Someone will just meet me, and then if the connection's right, this is male or female, like in terms of like either like, you know, all of a sudden you feel like you're mad cool, mad chill,
100%.
or, you know, or you just have like this link between people, and it's like they open up and tell you things that been in the back of their mind the whole time.
Yeah.
But they couldn't tell
Somebody else.
You know? But it's like, you don't have any stake in the game, so I can just tell it, and even if I sound stupid, it doesn't matter because you're not connected to this thing. I just need to tell somebody.
There was that guy, I forgot his name, he's an artist, and he said that he used to hitchhike. And he said that the stories that people tell you, because they feel like kind of like it's communion, confirmation, right? Confession. It feels like confession.
Yeah.
Because you'll never meet that person ever again, right? So it feels like you can confess your sins. Yeah. It's something that you hold in and you don't want to tell anybody, but in reality, once you tell somebody, it's a relief.
You got to a point in your life where what?
All right, so I got to a point in my life where that things that used to matter don't matter to me. So like, I don't have much money, but I don't buy expensive sneakers. Even though we can afford everything now, I think we have that adult money. That doesn't matter to me anymore. Now life experiences matter so much to me. Like, you know, there's so many people in our community that never travel. It's like, oh, I went to Florida, Dominican Republic, or Puerto Rico. That's all you've been to, bro? The world is a big ass place, right? And like I was saying, like it took me 1.5 years to grow that pepper plant. But when I saw that little baby pepper come out, it was like a father. Like I felt like this is me. Like this is the hard struggles and stuff like that. I'd rather put money towards that growth of something than put money towards like sneakers or clothes anymore. Like, I don't. For me, it's like I went to a crazy expensive hotel with the ryokan and all that stuff outside. Bro, it was worth it. Like, no, doesn't matter how many nights of drinking compared to, you know, those 2 nights and that. I don't know. I think moments in life are priceless to me now compared to momentous objects. You know, I was gonna say mono. Objects don't mean anything compared to, like, to me, like a new iPhone is the same as an iPhone from 5 years ago. Like, for me, I'd rather pay for someone to teach me how to use my iPhone to their limit than get a new iPhone. Does that make sense? Like, for me, when I was a kid, knowledge is nothing compared to what knowledge is now. Like, man, I would pay anything to learn certain things. Like, I wish I paid for a younger brain so I could learn something. Like, clothes don't mean anything. Like, it's the same thing every year. Like, you know, it's just put it in your closet. Wait 10 years. Guess what? That in your closet is gonna be the shit in 10 years. And it's, but you, the stuff that you learn, I bet you the skills that you learn things every day, but I bet you the solid things that you learn at that max level when you were obsessed with it, is the stuff you use more today. And that stuff is priceless to me. That's worth everything in this world. That and health. You know what I'm saying? Those two things, it's like, man, I'm obsessed with it. Life experience and learning. It's crazy to me now. Like, people spend all this money, like, oh, I got these Jordans for $500 that I only use once a year. I'm like, $500, bro? You can go to a crazy ass location. You can go to Thailand for a week with $500 and have the time of your life. I don't know. It's different. I'm such a different cat than I was years ago. It feels so different, you know. When you start, I can see why people, when they start making money, they do things that you're like, that's dumb. Like, it's not dumb. It's a different vibe, completely different vibe. That life experience, you know, when you get older, you start counting the days.
Yeah.
Do you feel like sometimes I don't even want to sleep? For real. Like, if my body can go on 4 hours, like, all I want to do is be asleep when it's nighttime.
Yeah.
And be awake. The second the light comes out, let's just go.
Yeah, I got that farmer feeling now where it's like, if I wake up at 9 o'clock, I felt like I lost the morning.
Man, the whole morning, you lost 3 hours.
Yeah.
And you could have done so much in those 3 hours.
Yeah.
So much. It's like, nah, life is like, people want to sleep it away. Like, that's on you, my guy. But, man, there's a lot of life to be lived. And you got to work. That's what you work for.
Yeah.
Like, people, you buy all this money and then, you know, you ever heard that Most Def interview? Like, a lot of people do, we're lucky we do stuff that we love. Like, I love to teach. Like, I really, you know, you have rough days, but I love it. But Most Def had an interview on Hot 97 that he said, man, you don't realize what you're doing. And people like, he's like, you work these jobs that you don't like, and guess what? You make all this money. You don't respect that bag. You don't respect the bag. You feel so shit when you do that work that when you get the money, you just spend it because you gotta fill that cup back up. You gotta feel that energy that you lost doing something you hate, and you gotta spend the money. And guess what? That's so short-lived. Then what you gotta go? You gotta go back to that job you don't like, to buy shit you don't really need, to give you that temporary joy, to repeat that cycle, you know?
There's a truth in that. You know, just to add on to that, I can really think of object materials that I own and I've had for years, and it's hard for me to give them up sometimes if there was a story behind, like the struggle
100%.
to get it or finally being happy to have it, versus like buying something por cualquier razón, and then I just kind of give it to someone else.
Bro,
you can have it.
You know, on top of that, it's like, and you don't even need the new thing.
Yeah.
You don't even need the new thing.
Dude, I still have a fucking MacBook Air from 2012.
I got the same shit. If it wasn't for that thing dying on me, I would have still had it. It's right there. I'm trying to rescue it.
Dude, I replaced the battery like 2 times.
Oh, man, the hard drive crashed and I'm trying to fix it. I'm like, come on, work. It doesn't, like, I you know, that's, you know, just to, like, to keep this train going, like, that's one of the reasons why I said yes to the project. Because it's a life experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy that someone says, yo, be you on film. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, what? Like a movie, dog? But I'm not an actor. It's like, nah, I don't need an actor. I need you. I could have easily said, nah, I'm not built for this. You know what I'm saying? But I literally told my girl, I was like, yo, let's just take this ride. Let's see where it goes. And it's so crazy. Like, it's it's such a, there's certain things in life that you can't put into words. And like the experience of us doing this, I really can't put into words. It's a life experience that there's people who pay other people to be in movies. Like, yo, can I be in a movie to feel that experience? And you offered it. I couldn't say no.
So what do you think will be people's reaction to the film?
I think it'll be I think what happens is definitely gonna be, I would say, a lot of people are gonna get a lot of different things from it. Right? I see some people being close, like, the pandemic is gonna bother people, unnerve people, right? Talking about that. I think people who are new to fatherhood are gonna feel a certain way. But I think that I would call them lost souls of traveling overseas and being stuck, and you want to go home. Like, we want to go home. Like, I want to go. I mean, everybody when oh, sorry, I adjusted the mic. When I'm in Japan, people are like, yo, when you going home? I'm like, this is my home. But when I talk about New York, I always say home, which I'm very. That's why I call myself, I'm lost at sea. And we're all lost at sea right now. And when is there another word for, or is expat? Because expatriate is for Americans, right? Or is it everybody who?
I think it's supposed to be for anybody.
Yeah. So I think the expatriates are gonna feel it more.
Yeah.
It's like when you don't feel, you meet those people who like, how did you assimilate to this culture, bro? Like, I love it here. I don't want to go home.
Yeah.
Because you kind of like stuck. You're like, you're not here, but you're not there. But how can, it's kind of like you get envious of people like, how did you assimilate? You look fine, bro. Like, how you look fine living here, bro? That it doesn't work that way, I think more people are gonna relate to that.
No, it's funny you said expat. It's funny. I always looked at expat as somebody who came from a place with money, like a good economy, and they went to another place where maybe the economy is equal, but usually it's lower, right? But like what our parents did, we don't call them expats. We just say immigrants, right? And that's technically they're still the same thing.
That's true. Yeah. Instead, like, you feel like moving up compared to moving down. And in reality, I think that depends on the job when it comes to Japan.
True.
Because depends on what you were trying to get back home or where you. But yeah, definitely. But yeah, I didn't even think of that. It wasn't considered.
Now, I'm just making shit up, but I know how I've heard it or used it in context. I never call my parents expats.
No. You say immigrant.
Yeah.
You did a good job. You're like, thanks. But they get mad. You're like, what? I risked it all, and you moving somewhere else.
You kind of answered this, but in case there might have been something to add on, what is the takeaway you hope will come from your character's story? You kind of said that when you said about
communication. I would say that.
I mean, if you answered it, we'll quickly move on. But if there's something else that kind of been added to that.
I would think that my characters, there's a lot of stuff that I know in my heart about the character that probably doesn't really come out on film, because the film will be forever. It'll take forever to finish but number one, I would say definitely communication. And number two is regret. Because that character is full of regret. And he's trying to make up for it. But it's too late. Or I hope it's not too late for that character. So I think there's a lot of lack of communication, not being able to express yourself, or pulling the trigger too fast on something when you shouldn't. But regret is there. And try to, I hope that what I hope people get from him is like, there's going to be regret. So think twice about what you do when there's another life. I don't have children. Well, I always say I have kids because I have hundreds of students, but they're all my little kids. And it's crazy when they hurt, and you're going to hurt even more, and you'll be full of regret compared to other people when it's your life. You know what I'm saying? And it's very difficult to see someone else struggling with the same thing because you're so full of regret. You're like, oh, you're gonna feel like shit. You're gonna feel even worse. You're gonna be more, regretful than I am. So I think that's what people are gonna get from it.
Again, I feel like you all the questions we ask, you take them to like a certain level that like answers many questions I have coming. But I'll just repeat them, just if there's something else to it.
Sure.
So the question is, what do you think you brought to the film as an individual? Like, what's the spark of divinity within you that you bring to anything you're passionate about?
I think a skill that I've had for many years is like I bring out. You know how like you said you go to a place and everybody kind of has this mask on, right? When you meet
This is
people.
our conversation before we started.
Yeah. Kind of like sometimes people feel like they gotta act a certain way, and the one cool thing is that I act like myself really quick, so people feel comfortable. Like I bring out the reality out of people. So like, like I was cracking jokes, so nobody was cracking jokes, and then everybody kind of opened up. Like I was saying some stupid slick shit from the beginning, and people were like, oh, okay, is that kind of party? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I brought, like, because even Maurice and everybody was like pretty serious, and I was like, and I can't keep my jokes in. It's something that I gotta let them out, And once I started joking, everybody kind of like loosened up a little bit, and then or loosened up a lot. You were like, all right, let's go, let's get back to work. But I think that's what I'm able to bring out the truth out of people. I think.
Yeah, it was funny, bro. It's like this. You brought that to the set, and that brought a dynamic that was very needed, for sure. Because it was my first go around as a director. And I'm like learning through the process and doing these things. But what's so funny is in the story, Maurice and Jude's character have a certain vibe there, and then when you come in the room, the vibe changes. Feel me? Mm-hmm. So it was the same thing for the production. Like we had like this one day before you came and filmed. And
how was that?
It was cool. I mean, but at the same time, it was just like the tone might have been more serious. I don't know. Like I had to watch myself to see it, but without a doubt, like when you showed up and we started filming all three of y'all, I feel like the production team themselves were able to like, relax, okay, right? We're here with, like it felt like day one felt like, all right, we're helping this dude out make a film. After day two, it felt like we're making this film. Like we're a part of this. Like it isn't like, it's like the difference between donation and showing up and putting in time. Like that's what it felt like. I can feel that dynamic change.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I felt like that when I walked in. I was like, everybody's like really quiet, and everybody's like, oh, it's serious. I was like, bro, I can't be serious for more than 10 minutes, bro. I was like, we need to laugh up in this bitch. And Maurice played it well too, because Maurice was like kind of like the clown, but it's kind of I think a lot of people would get annoyed if it was just like one clown. You know what I'm saying? But I was like, nah, there gotta be two clowns up in here. Like, but I'm more of a dynamic player. Like, I don't really, and that's, it could be good and bad. But I felt like that's what I brought to the table. Like, I think I loosened everybody up. Everybody was way more serious before I got there. That's what I felt.
I know you told me you'd do this again, like if you had a chance. But why? Like, what's?
I think I learned a lot. I think I was like, yo, it's just a chill. Like, I thought it was like a one-day endeavor. I was like, oh, it's just chill. Even when you're like, oh, let's record. I was like, damn, that's a lot of recording for this one day. Like, what's going on? And then it turned into, a lot, whatever, eight days or whatever, 10 days. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think I had you on for 3, and then
we
dialed it back.
Yeah.
It like almost tripled, if not.
But I think the second time around, I'll be way more serious. I'll ask much more questions. I'll put myself. I didn't, I'm like I said, you respect actors, but you kind of feel like they're liars a little bit, right? And then they're not lying. They have to put themselves. They actually believe it in their heart what they're doing, and I think I would take that way more serious the second time around. Not only that, but I think I would bring more to the table with the experience that I have the first time. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I would have like put more like, yo, more firm on certain things, like, yo, let's change this, or like, let's do this, or like, You know, it was more like, oh, I'm bringing it. When you're doing it, and it's like, nah, this doesn't feel right. Like it should be this way or whatever. But I think the experience would I bring much more to the table the second time around.
Yeah, I think I can vouch for that on my part too. Like, not that I was kidding around from the beginning, but when it came to me working with you, there were moments when we're shooting, and it's like you ask me a question that I'm like, man, I wish you would have asked me this in the rehearsal.
Yeah, that'd be her. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like.
But I didn't feel like I didn't feel it was necessary till then because like you were looking for something and I was like, but how can I find that something? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if the only way to know that is by doing the action.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's different on the internet and stuff. And when you're in person,
I realized that too. Like as soon as we started physically moving, I'm like,
it's so different. It's such a different. And then when you say action, it's like, oh, like you gotta keep your, now this is way more different, right? I'm not acting and just talking in front of the camera, but just not cracking a smile, number one, or you see these things and it's like, people don't notice. You got to turn that off. You got to turn that everything else that's happening. You got to turn the guy holding the light. You got to turn the joke that you just said before. You got to turn all that stuff off, and it's just you in the scene. And when I saw Maurice and Jay. Joel, right? What was
Jude.
Jude. I kept calling him Jay, but when I saw Jude and Maurice, and Jude came with it. I was like, man, I was kind of angry at myself because he had these scenes and I had the same chance in my scenes, but the intensity that he brought and the seriousness, I was kind of I was mad at myself, like, yo, that was work, and you could see it. You could see it in the film, and I want that second chance. I'm not an actor, but I don't like doing things half-assed. And when I saw Jude kill it, because Maurice was doing the Maurice, and even then we had to go over it because what I thought Maurice was supposed to be, when we filmed it the second time, it was more of what I thought. The first time it was more of a jokester, right? So he didn't really, even him probably, he didn't find it till the second time around. But Drew brought it to the table every day, and it was frustrating to see him bring that intensity, and I was like, I can do that if I have, if I would have put more into it, It was extremely frustrating to see him do so good, and not at him, it was like, fuck, I want to do that.
Yeah, it's more like you're mad at yourself.
Man,
it's like,
but he brought it, bro. He brought it. He brought it, and I want to be able to do that. So I think the second time around, I would definitely take it more serious, and put more input and stuff like that. Take off and try to balance it better because, man, another level.
How was it working with the other actors?
I think it's necessary. It's one of the best parts.
Not why I'm saying how was it? How was it when you?
It was the best part of the experience for me.
Oh,
it didn't come to life until then.
Okay.
It's one thing to read it and like I said, when I saw Jude, even when I saw Jude and Maurice, it was different. But when I was in the scene and seeing them and seeing the transition phase, it made me want to act, if that makes sense. I'm not an actor, but seeing someone really good at what they do makes you like, damn, I want to be able to do that, And also Maurice too. Maurice was like, oh, this and that, and then suddenly he would turn it on, It was nice. It made it worthwhile. I don't know if I'll be able, this is really cool, being one-on-one with you is really, really nice, but having the dynamic of the three and working off of each other and then they're vibing off is a completely different, it's crazy. I can see why people like acting, It's definitely an experience. It's tough. It's way tougher than a normal 9 to 5. It's definitely not what people think it is, 100%. It's not, but it was the best part for me. If it was like a solo thing, I don't know if I would feel, I think Jude and Maurice, the first day was pretty difficult. We didn't really know each other, but after day 2, it was really good. Especially, it was really nice coming back, and when everybody came back the second time around to do the reshoots and stuff, it was really good.
All right, there's a question in here. All right, the other actors are fathers themselves, so they can tap into what to that within their story arc as a personal experience. You're not a father, but your character is a father who lost his connection with his own daughter. In respect to that part of this story, where did you go with your emotions or thoughts to feel or understand that from a fictional point of view? Before you answer, you definitely already kind of told me with your dad. So take me along further to that.
I think what happens is, I remember there was I forgot who said this, but it was like people should take a test to be a father or a parent. I remember that because being a parent, being a father, is totally different than being a responsible parent. Because being a father just means, you're biologically, you gave your seed, right? So you are a father. But being a parent is totally, totally different. And me being a teacher is not any different than being a parent. Do you understand? I get frustrated. I take care of kids all day long. When they fall, I hurt. Or if they're hurt, I'm hurt,
You're talking about the children, the kids?
All of them.
The
Doesn't matter the age of them.
Oh, so even if it's like my age kind of student? Or are you talking about
kids? Yeah. I have one student right now, not to put a business on the street, but as a matter of fact, I've had countless students come right here and crying. Doesn't matter the age, that they feel open enough. They feel a parental figure in you that they trust in you and talk to you, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think I know it's totally different being a biological father, right?
Yeah.
But having the experience and the years being a teacher that I've had, I don't think parenthood is going to be a surprise, most of it, to me, because I've already experienced, the baby, the actual my kid and all that stuff is completely different. I don't feel that. But being a parent, I've been doing it for years and years. I remember someone asked me, like, there are students that they get to you so much that you would risk it all for these kids when you see them. I remember I had a student and we had an issue and I punched this guy in the face for a student because I was like, there's no way you're going to talk to this kid like that. There's no way, my guy. There's none. I've had parents arguing and or mothers, I've gotten in the way, like, yo, what are you doing? You're killing this kid, Like, what you're doing is stupid. So the fact that I'm not a biological father, yeah, it's totally different. But being a teacher and being it for so long, my youngest student is 1, my oldest student is 84. Bro, I imagine the other day I was crying. I was like, man, when my 84-year-old student dies, I'm going to be heartbroken. I love this dude like he's my grandfather. Do you understand? Like, I feel this connection with these students. So to say, like, to when you ask me what do I tap into, I tap into my normal day life. I have a 4-year-old here today that, before he leaves, he gives me a hug. That's another level that a lot of people will never experience, or say, like, I've had my heart broken countless times. So I've had young kids, they're adults now. It's like, you do and it's torture sometimes as a teacher because you give your heart and soul to these children and then you have to repeat the cycle again, It's like I've had countless babies because I've seen countless kids grow up already, So that's why I tapped into, and I'm a firm believer, like, just because you gave your seed doesn't mean, I remember the exact same words, but there is a difference between being a father and being a parent. And I think I've been a parent for many, many years.
Yeah.
A guardian or whatever it's called. I'm not a father, but I am a parent, and I love my kids, and I think that's where I tapped into for that. It doesn't matter the age.
On the same theme, the actors are fathers, and in our talks they have conveyed the fact that when things are difficult in the filming process, whether it was waking up extra early with little sleep, filming long hours, the reshoots, the fucking rehearsals, practices, they were able to look at their children and make that their driving force to complete this project. Like something to set an example of, look, what your father can do. So when it comes time for you to flex your passions, you can too. You don't got that, But you had me on, but you had me on you for the reshoots, the practices. You know, I think I wrote this last sentence wrong. But what I'm trying to say is, you didn't have a kid, right? But you had to still do these reshoots. You still had the long hours. You got a crazy busy schedule, but you still show up. Why? Like, what did you have to tap into when things got real hard in those moments?
I think that number one is commitment. I made a commitment to the film that I don't like to break my commitments, you know. That's number one. Like, you said, Michael, can you do the film? I said, yeah, I'm gonna do it from beginning to end. So I made a commitment to you, and you say, yo, you sure you want to do this project? Seeing the effort that everybody put into the project, and it was not only me, and to know that everybody in the project played a very intricate role. If somebody wasn't there, it would be very difficult to continue the project. You know, I've always, one of the things that I've really loved growing up was I've always been involved in smaller things. I don't like to be involved in like big ass companies where you're just a number. And when we filmed this, everybody had an important role. Like, if I wasn't there, you can't continue. If Maurice wasn't there, you can't continue, you know? We had cameramen, but with the cameramen, like, it was really hard. Like, you had to do, it was very, very difficult, you know? So what made me want to show up was to know the fact that if I can completely mess up the project, everybody's on board, you know? And I think that's what kept me going. I made a commitment, you know? And I trusted you and you trusted me, so I'm not going to lose that trust.
All right, let's talk culture, race, ethnicity, and your own lived experience. What is it to be a Dominican in America?
I think it's a very difficult topic to answer because, you know, we've been out of America for a long time, but I remember, I think we spoke about this before, it was like being in a Dominican in America and being a Dominican is two different things. Like, I said this story before, but I remember it was a Sunday. I had to be at work by 10, and I just got up the station, and I hear these people speak. I'm like, I'm half asleep. Like, I just jetted out my crib, and I'm like half asleep, and it was winter, and I hear people talking Spanish, and I'm like, damn, that's Spanish? I'm like, in my hood, what the hell? And then I'm like, wait, that's Dominican Spanish. So what the fuck? Like, there's Dominicans? I was like, no way. I remember a couple months before, you know, when you run into somebody, almost you get hit by a car almost. And I remember I looked, and the guy kind of stopped, and I looked at the car, and he had a Dominican flag, and I went around in the car, and it always stayed in my brain. And I'm like, there's Dominicans here. So when I heard these people, I was like, maybe it was that guy who almost hit me with the car. So I'm there, and I'm like, it's driving me crazy. I say, you know what, fuck it. I say, excuse me, are you guys Dominican? And the guy looked at me dead up in the face and said, are you from New York? That's what the guy said. He said, are you New York Dominican? I said, yeah, how'd you know? He was like, you speak like a New York Dominican. Like, that dude, oddly enough, it turns out, like, there was a Dominican family here. The guy's from Dominican Republic, and he grew up sometime in New York, so the kids grew up in New York, but they were born in Japan, they moved to Dominican Republic and whatever. Kind of like the same track as me, minus the Dominican Republic part. And that shows me, like, even when going to Dominican Republic, I was always a gringo, right? So it was like, I didn't really fit in Dominican Republic. Like, you had this separation, which was cool, I understand it. They didn't mean it by no harm, they just know what they know, you know? And most of them, they always wanted to come to the States anyway, so... but feeling comfortable in my own skin, like, you play this role, you know. I always remember in the book with Juno, like, you feel like I feel like I didn't really fit into the other Dominicans growing up. Like, at least my cousins and stuff felt like they did a certain thing. I never really did that. So answering that question is is really difficult because I always felt Dominicans were a certain way, but the people that I hung out, they always seemed more Dominican than me. You know, but then in reality, when I went to college and you meet all these other people, like, they were exactly like me. Like, we were stuck in this realm. Like, are we Dominican? Are we American? Then when you get older, you really connect with the Dominicanness, so you're not trying to lose it, but you're not quite Dominican enough. It was this weird, this weird thing. But being away from it all, like, I miss it so much, And it's crazy when I lived in New York, how like I used to have all this quote unquote Asian stuff in my crib, that this cultural thing that nobody uses here, which is crazy. And now you go to my house, there's nothing Japanese. It's all American, as Dominican stuff as you can be, So I don't know. It's a difficult question for me. I don't really know how to say it, but I can definitely say that I never felt quite Dominican enough in the Heights. I always felt like I never spoke enough Spanish. You know what I'm saying? Or I didn't speak the Spanish to, like, I remember like just I wasn't hick enough, like my boys just say, like my boys are straight up hicks and stuff. And I was never like, it's a difficult thing for me to answer, but that's how I guess that's why it's easy for me to live in Japan as well too,
Yeah, everything you said, I lived. That whole shit talking about like you never felt like you were Dominican enough amongst Dominicans. You go to DR, do it as a gringo, the whole shit.
But they all wanted to be like you.
Oh, for sure. They wanted your opportunity.
At that time, I felt, exactly. Not
sure.
like me, but the opportunity.
Yeah, but at the same time, you want to be like them. It's weird. It's like, let's switch places. Because I feel like I feel like I don't have a tribe.
Yeah.
But as time is going on and I meet cats like you, or, I go back home, or I'm in New York, and then you meet the other Dominicans or Puerto Ricans that might be in the same situation, it's like, we'll keep it Dominican in most cases, because Puerto Rico still is kind of like has more of an American connection,
But even then, they're still very independent.
They are independent, yeah.
Compared to the Puerto Ricans in the States,
right? But they came in sooner too, So like our parents were the first wave, for real. And I've been reading the Bible lately, B, and there's this part in the history of like the tribe, like the tribe of Israel. And God splits them. And then you got the tribe of Israel, and then you got the tribe of Judah. And I'm like, if I'm gonna like see a similarity there, it feels like we're the tribe of Judah. Like we're still the same, but now we're kind of different, because now like the fact that we split off and we're doing this, our culture is evolving in a different way. Like we have like this mix or this fusion, or we look at it, but we still look at our source still being Dominican, no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's always. But then, I guess that's why I don't feel that bad here in Japan, because like I don't feel obviously I don't feel Japanese at all, but I feel like you look over at the States and stuff, and you just feel different. Not like you're better than them, because I don't. I just see things differently than the way people see it back home. It's totally different.
Well, let's go on to that, because I'm gonna just kick it on. Like, let's apply the same question to that of Japan. For like the Japanese, you're like an American, just like everyone. Like like back home, if you're Asian, tú eres un chino. So for them, if you come from America, you're American. Like they don't understand like this little split.
Especially from where we come from.
Oh, for sure. Like the only
my mom says like China. I'm like, Mom, I don't live in China. It's like, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like, nah.
I mean, that's just the word for Asia. But being here, the only thing that they differentiate is white American, black American, for the most part.
Not even. Yeah. Kind of like white versus everything else.
Yeah, kind of like that in some ways, What I don't have is an exact question. I'm just kind of tearing it in that direction. Like, what does it feel to be, I guess, Dominican American in Japan?
So, I think we spoke about this before. I wish I remember the girl, what she said to me, but I remember my life has been anything but straight path career-wise. It's always been all over the place. I've always been independent for many, many years, myself work, fixing computers and stuff. But like when I sit down and say my story to people, I get a lot of like, yo, you've experienced a lot, and I have. And I remember I was telling this story to like a bunch of people, and I remember someone said, man, you've done a lot. And this one girl, I can't remember, I wish I knew who she was. She said, yo, why you play yourself? You're just a Dominican. And I never forget those words. She said, "You just a Dominican kid from Washington Heights. Sometimes you just a Dominican. Like that's all you are." And I was like, "What are you supposed to mean by that?" But obviously, I was disrespected by the question, so I don't remember what the person said it. But I know it was a driving force that if I ever met that person again, I had a lot to say. But that being said, being just a Dominican from Washington Heights in Japan has put me in positions of fortunes that I would never acquire back home. Never. Just being that same, just a Dominican, like, oh, I know this Dominican cat, like everybody knows me as Uptown Mike because I'm all the way uptown. Like, oh, you know Uptown, I'm like, oh yeah, I know him. Like, damn, how does this kid know everybody? And I was like, because I'm just that Dominican kid, and I live that whole. Everybody knows that Dominicans like to talk to everybody. They're cool with everybody, peligroso, whatever people will call us, but. That experience, I tell people, being an American put me in a place in Japan. Being a New Yorker put me in another place in Japan. But being a Dominican male New Yorker in Japan with the mindset that we have is what has put me. I'm able to be where I am right now because of it. It's everything because of it. Once people are like, oh, you Latino, or you Dominican, or you from New York, this and this and this is everything. It's everything. People trust you just because, oh, he's Dominican from New York. Oh, I got a boy, yo. Those you could trust those trustful dudes, Like I remember just going into places and be like, oh, it's my Dominican. Like all of a sudden, that word in our community means a lot. So it's everything. It's everything. Like I said, it's put me in positions that I never imagined being able. I'm being bilingual, so you can slide into different worlds.
There are a lot of invisible doors, baby.
a lot in our small community. A lot of them, and so I'm grateful for it. It's crazy. I wish I had a diary and I read all the stuff that has ever happened to me, but. It's everything. It's definitely a plus in everything that I've ever been. And then for me, being Dominican, being Hispanic, the thing that we have as Hispanics is community. And bringing that community to a place where Japanese are community-based, but it's a different kind of community. And having like my girl, she's like, oh my God, I just love that your family has a group chat and you guys are constantly talking and you call your mom every day, and it's like we don't do that. Having that mentality and bringing that to Japan as Dominican, like we want to get together, we want to be part together, we want to celebrate things together, has been everything for me. That's why I've succeeded here, and that's the one thing that Corona has taken away. Hopefully it comes back.
Why should people see this movie?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I'll say a selfish act because we made it,
That's a good answer. I'll take that.
I think it's difficult because I know and we know all the work that went into it. But I think it shows, as much as it's made up, sorry to cut you off, as much as it made off, I think it captures a time that hopefully we'll never feel again. Right? Corona, friendships, meaning like, if everything continues going the way it's going to go, we shouldn't feel that again. And I think this film captures a moment in time that I hope to never live again. When you hear what the characters are going through, it's crazy. And it depends on where, and we didn't even have it that bad. One of my friends, she had a ruptured bladder, not bladder,
Kidney?
goal,
Liver?
gallbladder. It's a thing that you don't use. That everybody has an eruption. Whatever.
Appendix?
Her appendix ruptured, and we took her to the hospital, and she had a kid. So she called us, and she was like, "Yo, this shit is crazy." Oh, that's what it was. She called us. She's like, "You gotta call the ambulance. Like, it's either that or a taxi." And she's like, "Okay, I'll call an ambulance." And she called us back a couple minutes later. She's like, "Yo, you guys gotta come to the hospital." Like, why? She's like, "My son can't stay here with me." It's like, my son. I'm a single mom, and my son can't stay with me.
Is this is Japan?
This is Japan. This is a straight up story. This happened a year ago. I would say a year.
Because of the corona.
Because of the corona. Because they can't risk anything. And we had to leave her alone. You can't even stay with her. You had to. We went. They let us in because we had to go pick up the kid, and she had to give like a verbal confirmation, like, "Oh, I know them," and the kid had to leave. I don't want to live that ever again. And I think this film has a softer snapshot of that, time. And I think hopefully, if everything goes well, we wouldn't ever experience something crazy like this again. And I think the film captures that. And I think that's why people should watch it. It's a snapshot of something in life that is, it's like war history or something when you watch a film like that. Like, hopefully you never have to experience something like that. And there's a lot of people who experience really crazy things, but there's a lot of people who's like, "Oh, I don't, I just stay home. My life is kind of like this," and no one ever experienced any hardships, So that's why I would say.
Who should not see the film?
Oh, come on, you're reaching. I would say people who are not the type of person that can watch slow burn things. Like, if you can't invest, 30, 40 minutes in time, and there doesn't have to be an explosion or something at the end. I remember vividly, we were in college at the time, and someone had the bright idea of watching Requiem to a Dream, all of us together. And we saw it. And I remember they turned the lights on, and we had a Requiem to a Dream is like an hour and a half, right? Something like that, really short. It's not that long. It's like
it's
an
a
hour
film.
and a half.
It's a film, though.
But it's not that long.
No, it's not Titanic.
Yeah, but we sat double the time of the film and had a conversation about Requiem to a Dream. We were so and that was amazing, that experience. That experience was like, we took a fictional story and we saw the rise and fall of characters, and we were able to discuss it. And if you're that kind of person, then you should watch it. If you're not, then I don't think you should watch it. If you're comfortable with watching something and dissecting it and talking about it and diving deep, I think it's for you. But if not, then you shouldn't.
Who would you like to see the film, generally or personally?
Are people to watch it?
Who would you like to see it, generally or personally?
Like a person?
Yeah.
I mean, I want my family members to watch it like that. Yeah, of course I want my family members to watch it. It's going to be weird. My family's mad stupid. My brother sent me a picture. I could show it to you. It's like my Saturday night, and he's drinking a beer, and he's watching me on YouTube. It's like, bro, stop. It's like a very embarrassing YouTube too. It's not even like a good one. It's like, yo, you dumb, That and a few of my peers, it's a difficult, because I think the movie is very directed towards a certain genre of people. Like, you could have made it funnier. You could have made it more action based. You could have done all that stuff, but you didn't. You had a thing in mind that you wanted it to go, and I can watch it because I'm in it, but I also know that there has to be kind of like a setup. Does that make sense? So I definitely want my family members to see it, but I could see some of my family say, it's cool, I could see that, because I think it's definitely directed towards people who enjoy deep diving into conversations, watching something and talking about fatherhood and stuff like that. So definitely my family, yeah. Juno, of course.
Is there anything else you'd like to say, add, you've been thinking about within the film?
I hope there's a part 2, and I hope we can all write it together. I hope there's another that we can all act. I would definitely, if I can finally sit down, I want to write. I told you that I definitely want to write, and I have tons of ideas and stuff, but I hope there's a part two. I hope I got to meet my daughter and it wasn't what I expected. That would be an interesting thing to dive into.
New York City.
Going home, and she's not trying to see me. That would be interesting.
Seen Padre Part 2.
Yeah.
Up in the Bronx.
Hard Hat Sunday.